Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea's finance minister says relief is on the way for the country's small businesses. 90% of those eligible for the latest round of payments will get them by the end of September. President Moon Jae-in announces new medical procedures to be covered by national health insurance, pledging more improvements to come to strengthen the system. And South Korea's exports of ICT products rose to a new high last month, up more than 30% on year, thanks to a surge in shipments of semiconductors and displays. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. Next week, the South Korean government will start paying out another round of relief funds for small businesses affected by the pandemic. The finance minister says 90% of people who are eligible will get their payments by the end of September. Jang Tae-hyun has the latest.
Finance Minister Hong Nam-ki said Thursday that the effects of the fourth wave of the virus on South Korea's economic recovery will start showing up in economic indicators from this month. In a meeting on emergency response measures, he said prompt support is needed to help small business owners.
We will use this year's second supplementary budget to provide emergency relief funds for smaller merchants hit hard by COVID-19 and for those whose incomes are not in the top 12%. 90% of those who are eligible will get relief by the end of September.
For more than a month, the capital area has been under the highest level of social distancing, which has greatly limited the ability of businesses to operate. To help them out, one type of financial support is called recovery funds. The Ministry of SMEs and Startups said Thursday that the amount paid will depend on a business annual sales and the period that it's been affected by the distancing measures. Businesses that had to close completely for more than 6 weeks can receive up to 20 million won, or about $17,000. And those whose operating hours have been limited for more than 13 weeks can receive up to 9 million won, or about $7,700. These funds will be paid starting August 17th. There's another type of funds called compensation for losses, which will be paid at the end of October. That's according to the first Vice Finance Minister Lee Kun-hee, who said that a task force is working on the details. Jang Tae-hyun, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in has announced new medical procedures to be covered by South Korea's national health insurance. They're adding coverage for certain dental surgeries, serious pediatric diseases, and heart conditions. Hong Yoo reports.
Marking 4 years since his administration announced policies to improve health insurance coverage, President Moon Jae-in was briefed virtually on Thursday by related ministries on their accomplishments.
근보 보장성 강화는 돈이 없어 치료받지 못하고 치료비 때문에 가게가 파탄나는 일이 없도록 하자는 정책입니다.
President Moon said the improved coverage over the past 3 years has helped 37 million patients save a total of around $7.9 billion. To further improve healthcare, the government plans to expand coverage for treating serious heart problems, as well as psoriasis and dental nerve surgery. They will also increase the number of specialist medical facilities for children.
어린이 공공전문진료센터의 지원을 확대하고 내년에 중증 소아 단기 입원 서비스 센터를 설립할 것입니다.
He also said that health insurance played an important role in the fight against COVID-19 by covering the cost of diagnosis and treatment. President Moon emphasized that the government will continue to work to strengthen the system to cover new treatments. Hong Yoo, Arirang News.
South Korea's ICT exports hit a fresh high for the month of July on strong demand for semiconductors and displays. According to the Trade Ministry, those exports amounted to $19.5 billion, up more than 30% on year. That's the most on record for the month of July, and it's the 14th rise in a row. Semiconductor exports were up around 39% to $11 billion, and displays almost 35%. The main destination for those shipments was China. Samsung Electronics has unveiled a new lineup of foldable devices, and this lineup includes the first foldable model priced at under $1,000. They'll be in stores before the end of the month. Pae-eun-ji has the details.
At its Galaxy Unpacked event Wednesday night, Samsung Electronics unveiled its new set of devices. Instead of a new flagship model of the Galaxy Note series, the tech firm unveiled two new foldable smartphones, the Galaxy Z Fold3 and the Galaxy Z Flip3.
The Z Fold3 is a smartphone that opens outward like a book. The key feature of this is that it supports the S Pen, becoming Samsung's first foldable smartphone to do so.
Along with its 7.6-inch wide screen, it's equipped with an under-display camera, meaning the lens is hidden behind the display panel. What's also different from the previous version is that it's now water-resistant, so the phone can survive under 1.5 meters of water for up to 30 minutes.
This is the new mainstream for smartphones. More accessible, more durable, and engineered for tailored, seamless experiences of the future.
The Z Flip3, which opens upward like the flip phones popular in the early 2000s, is also waterproof. Samsung has also lowered the price of the Fold 3 to $1,800, which is $200 less than the original price of the Z Fold 2. The Z Flip 3 is around $1,000, also cheaper than last year's model. This is to expand the demand for foldable phones beyond Samsung's normal devices.
Foldable phones were pretty expensive and unaffordable for most people because they cost over 2 million Korean won. So Samsung lowered the price, hoping more smartphone users buy these devices.
Samsung also unveiled its new smartwatch, the Galaxy Watch 4, and its wireless earbuds, the Galaxy Buds 2. Pre-orders for the devices start next Tuesday in South Korea, and the phones will be available in stores across Korea, US, and Europe from August 27th. 배은지, Arirang News.
South Korea and Turkey have signed a new currency swap deal worth $2 billion with the aim of improving their financial stability. This will provide both countries with liquidity in the other's currency, enabling the Bank of Korea to exchange won for Turkish lira at an agreed rate and vice versa. Turkey in particular could use some access to liquidity, its currency now worth a fraction of what it was a decade ago. The deal will run for 3 years, effective today, and can be extended if both sides agree. The two countries are also working to enable the use of their local currencies for bilateral trade. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Kim Se-won, professor of economics at Ewha Women's University. Professor Kim, good afternoon. Thank you for coming on today.
Good afternoon, Devin.
Well, we're all watching to see what the Federal Reserve is going to do with inflation running high. At the same time, employment is recovering. And now the president of the Atlanta Fed, Raphael Bostic, is saying he sees the potential for tapering to start toward the end of this year, sometime around October to December. What's the word at the Fed, and what do you see happening there?
When exactly U.S. Fed tapers is one of the most important factors of global financial markets. Recently, quite a few Fed officials are saying that it is time for the central bank to start reversing the easy monetary policy put in place to support the U.S. economy after coronavirus pandemic hit U.S. in March 2020. Atlanta Fed President Mr. Bostic said on Monday that earlier tapering is acceptable because of improved employment in July. U.S. economy has added 943,000 new jobs in July, which is much more than market expectations. Kansas City Fed President Ms. George said also the central bank has made enough progress toward its objectives of boosting growth and employment after the outbreak of pandemic. But other central bank officials have argued recently that central bank should wait and at least until their next meeting in November to make any decisions. So overall, U.S. employment and inflation in July and August will determine U.S. Fed's tapering decision in the fall.
Well, speaking of central banks, analysts are saying that monetary easing in China is boosting Korea's exports and encouraging low interest rates here. That indicates the growing link between the financial markets of the two countries and the sensitivity of Korea to the flow of money from Chinese investment. Tell us about that, Professor.
Korean economy is really highly intertwined with Chinese economy in a real sector perspective and financial sector perspective too. And the degree of connection between the two countries is even getting stronger over coronavirus pandemic. According to Bank of Korea's recent report, China's expansionary monetary policy from the outbreak of pandemic has an effect of increasing Korea's export to China. In addition, it has a power to increase Korean stock market and decrease Korean interest rate in the long run. The chain reaction from China goes like this. When China decreases its interest rate, Chinese export increases because of depreciated Chinese yuan. And then almost automatically, Korea's export to China increases because there is huge import of Korean intermediate goods to China. So, and that makes Korean companies more profitable, which drives up Korean stock market.
Yeah, and speaking of stocks, Wall Street closed higher on Wednesday for the most part as inflation came in lower than expected. Tech shares on the Nasdaq were lower, but the Dow and the S&P closing at new all-time highs. What's the story in the global markets?
Dow Jones Industrial and the S&P 500 closed at fresh highs on Wednesday. Stabilized U.S. inflation in July and $1 trillion infrastructure investment package of U.S. government were the main driving forces of U.S. stock market yesterday. From the beginning of this year, U.S. inflation exceeded market expectation every month with highest increase in 13 years. July's inflation was 5.4% in U.S. on yearly basis, but it increased only 0.5% compared to previous month of June. This stabilized inflation pressure gave a positive impact on U.S. stock market overall. Dow Jones Industrial gained by 0.6%, but Nasdaq lost by 0.2% in a day. All European markets also gained over 0.4% yesterday as U.S. inflation gets stabilized with less possibility of U.S. Fed interest rate hike.
And today here in Korea, the market was up and down, a fairly volatile session, closing mostly lower in the end, though, as investors watch the virus situation. Foreign investors in particular selling off in a big way. Tell us about the domestic market.
As you said, Devin, there was a lot of ups and downs in domestic stock market today. In early trading session in domestic markets, U.S. markets rise yesterday gave a positive impact on domestic market. However, Kospi closed with negative 0.4% return as foreigners sell net of 1.8 trillion won in the afternoon session. So Kospi has dropped for 6 straight trading days, including today. And there was massive sales by foreigners in Kospi market too. But domestic individuals, 114 net billion won buy, lifted up market by 0.2% today.
And finally, Professor, to zoom in on a couple of companies in particular, chip makers SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics have taken a big hit in the past couple of weeks. It's not just Korean chip makers, though, also Micron Technologies in the U.S. So it seems to be an issue in the industry as a whole. What's happening in the chip sector?
Global memory chip demand is really volatile, so it is almost impossible to forecast the future demand of memory chips. But there has been a growing concern from the end of last year that global memory chip demand is saturated sometime in the end of this year. And recently released survey on global chip market report has decreased all major chip manufacturers' stock prices, including Samsung Electronics, SK Hynix, and Micron from United States. The survey by Transpose expects global memory chip price will decrease by 5% in fourth quarter of this year because of excessive production and piling up inventories. After the release of this report, Samsung Electronics dropped by 2.1%, and SK Hynix even further dropped by 6.2% yesterday. U.S. memory chip maker Micron also dropped by 5.3%. Since memory chip is one of the most important export items, which covers 20% of total Korean export, the developments of global chip market will give significant impact on Korean economy. But this could be a temporary shock to memory chip market because, as I said, it is not possible to forecast future memory chip demand for sure.
Something we'll have to watch very carefully and rely on you, Professor, to keep us up to speed. Thanks so much for sharing your insights with us today, as always.
Thank you very much.
The number of new COVID-19 cases today in South Korea is down from the record high we saw yesterday, but it's only just under 2,000. The sharp rise in cases has the authorities considering even stricter social distancing. Shin Yeon reports.
South Korea on Thursday confirmed 1,987 new COVID-19 cases. Almost 40% of cases, a record of 746, came from outside the capital region. While the total daily tally was slightly down from the day before, many have raised concerns that the current social distancing measures aren't proving effective. The Greater Seoul area has been under level 4, the highest distancing level for more than a month, but new cases remain stubbornly high. Most other regions have been under the second highest level for nearly 3 weeks. And authorities on Thursday said they were well aware of these concerns.
We know that many experts are giving out various suggestions. The government is currently monitoring the increase in confirmed cases this week and believe that this number might rise under the current social distancing measures.
They added that if this is the case, additional distancing measures will be considered.
On top of current measures taken under level 4, there may need to be additional restrictions. We will make an announcement after talking with the relevant ministries and reviewing COVID-19 forecasts.
Although not much has been revealed as to what these additional measures might be, authorities have said they would base their decision on the number of new cases rather than the number of patients in critical condition or the number of deaths. That's because the number of deaths or patients in critical condition has significantly dropped thanks to higher vaccination rates. Meanwhile, the government is trying to find ways to provide extra hospital beds and intensive care units for patients in case the daily COVID-19 count continues to hover near the 2,000s. Outside of Korea, the number of cases in the U.S. is averaging 100,000 per day, the highest in nearly 6 months. And Japan on Wednesday reported a record high of almost 16,000 cases. Shin Yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea's vaccine campaign is not going as fast as hoped, in large part because of supply issues. Vaccine maker Moderna has said it'll be able to send less than half the doses it had pledged for this month. And though younger Korean adults can sign up for their vaccine this week, fewer are doing so than expected. So In-kyung reports.
A delegation from the South Korean government will depart for the United States tomorrow to resolve the disruption to supplies of the Moderna vaccine. The 4 Korean delegates, including Second Vice Health Minister Kang Do-tae, will have a meeting with Moderna's representative at their headquarters on Friday afternoon local time. The government reportedly plans to protest against the company and aims to get a promise that there won't be a recurrence of the delay. Earlier this year, the government signed a contract with Moderna to purchase 40 million vaccines for 20 million people. However, over the past 2 months, fewer than 2.5 million doses have arrived in Korea. If the supply of Moderna vaccines continues to be disrupted, the nation's vaccination plan in the second half of the year will have to be changed. Along with the vaccine supply disruption, the lower than expected vaccination rate has also emerged as a concern for the Korean government. Vaccine reservations for those aged 18 to 49 started on Monday, but the reservation rate among the age group has only been at about 60%, which is lower than the government target of 70%. The government attributed the low sign-up rate to concerns about the side effect of vaccination. Regarding this, the government said it is planning a publicity campaign to encourage young people to get inoculated. The health authorities said last week that they expect that 70% of people in the country will have been fully vaccinated by the end of October or by early November. 서은경, Arirang News.
The WHO says that by early next year, the total number of coronavirus cases around the world since the start of the pandemic could rise to more than 300 million. That would be another 100 million added to the figure now. It's spreading fast, so the agency says it's going to start mass trials of 3 COVID-19 treatments. Kim Hyo-sun has this report.
While the international community grapples with the rampant spread of COVID-19, the WHO says it plans to study 3 potential treatments for patients who have the virus.
Today, we're pleased to announce the next phase in the Solidarity trial, called Solidarity Plus. Solidarity Plus will test 3 drugs: artesunate, a treatment for severe malaria; imatinib, a drug for certain cancers; and infliximab, a treatment for immune system disorders such as Crohn's disease.
He explained the trials are being conducted across 52 countries. The head of the WHO also warned that with the current speed at which the virus is spreading, cumulative global cases could top 300 million by early next year. Forecasting the grim outlook, he said how fast it happens depends on everyone's efforts to contain the virus. Against this backdrop, data released by Worldometer Wednesday showed new global daily cases from late July have hovered around the 700,000 range. While this is lower than the 900,000 logged in mid-April, it's much higher than the 200,000 seen in late June. Japan on Wednesday reported yet another record high of over 15,800 cases. Despite Tokyo's efforts to stem the spread with numerous regions placed under a state of emergency, Wednesday's tally was up nearly 11% from the previous week. COVID-19 cases continue to skyrocket in Iran, with its new president stressing that overcoming the pandemic is the top priority of his government. Iran, the worst affected country in Middle East, reported over 42,500 new infections on Wednesday, a new all-time high. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Next week, South Korea will be hosting the president of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, who will be here on a state visit. The Blue House says President Tokayev will arrive in Seoul on Monday evening and will attend a summit with President Moon the next day. It's expected that they'll discuss cooperation in a range of sectors such as transportation and infrastructure. Kazakhstan is South Korea's largest trading partner and investment destination in Central Asia. On the occasion of the visit, Seoul will be repatriating from Kazakhstan the remains of Hong Bom-do, a leader in the fight for Korea's independence in the early 20th century. He led the Korean Independence Army in major battles against Imperial Japan. Later, on Stalin's orders, he was deported with other Koreans to Kazakhstan, where he died in 1943. An arrival ceremony will be held on August 15th, the country's Liberation Day. His remains will later be buried at the Daejeon National Cemetery. This evening, the National Museum of Korea is going to live stream a tour of its new exhibition called A Great Cultural Legacy, Masterpieces from the Bequest of the late Samsung Chairman Lee Kun-hee. The live stream will start at 7 p.m. on the museum's Naver TV channel. The exhibition presents 77 pieces out of the more than 21,000 donated by the late Samsung Chairman, who died last October. At the museum, it's been open since July 21st, but social distancing measures have prevented many people from going. The stream will be narrated by the curator, who will take questions from viewers in real time. Afterwards, a video of the stream will be posted on the museum's Naver channel. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.